Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Teresa Litchfield. Altenew has come out with some of the most beautiful 3D embossing folders in the last couple months, and I wanted to share a creative way to use them with the slimline card size. I'm really excited to be part of the Altenew Fairy Tale Dreams video hop, which is part of the Storybook Fantasy product release that happened a few days ago. If you didn't see the product release, I thought I would share some of the projects I made for that, and you can learn more about these on my blog post, which is listed in the description below. I used some new products from that release to create my card today. There's a stamp set that coordinates with the embossing folder, and I wanted to use them together to make this simple card with lots of texture. So here's the floral drape 3D embossing folder. I just love the flowers in this. They are just so pretty. And here's the coordinating stamp and die set. And I'll use some of the flowers on the top there, and I'll show you how that works in a bit. I use a 3.5 by 6 piece of cardstock, and I use 2 of those and run those through my die cut machine with the embossing folder. I also use the nesting slim rectangle dies to make my card base, and it's 8.5 by 3.5, and I used the largest one. And there's my 2 pieces that are the slimline size, and I just take my pencil and kind of mark it where I want it to be of this for the size and glue them together. It's really hard to see that seam after you've glued them, but I'm going to cover that up, and you'll see how I do that. But I'm going to take a piece of fun foam that I cut to the same size as that embossed piece, and I'm going to pop that up on the card front there. So now to stamp the flowers, I'm going to take the stamp set, and this is a really unique set where the middles of the flowers are on the background of that stamp. And I'm going to use the 2 large sizes. Even though I have it shown that I'm going to use 3, I actually just end up using the 2 largest ones. But I use buttercream ink to stamp the centers, and I do that a few times just to get them as dark as I want them. And by the way, I have a sticky mat inside my MISTI to keep everything in place. So now I can put those flowers on top of the centers, and I'm going to use pink diamond to do that. And I'll stamp those, and they stamp very solid. So I stamp those a couple of times, and then I'm going to use cotton candy ink and a small blending tool and go around the edges to make them a bit darker. You could also use the rock and roll technique to do that. I just like the softness of the blending tool. With this technique, you don't get any hard edges like you would with the rock and roll technique. So after I've done that a couple times, you can see it really gives a lot of dimension to just add a little bit of depth on the edges. And now I'm going to cut those out with the coordinating dies. I decided I wanted to use the little bud from the stamp set. And so I take the negative piece, I stamp the bud first, but I don't stamp the stem. So now I'm taking the stamp for the stem and putting it in the negative piece, and then putting it on the lid of my MISTI. And that way it stamps really nice, and I used frayed leaf to do that. So now I put that positive piece back in the negative piece and stamp that stem. And I just found this was an easy way of doing that because that stem is so small. And it really stamps nice if you line it up with a negative piece. So now that I have the flowers all done, I'm going to cover up that seam with some cardstock. And the white piece is 2 inches by 3 1/4, and the yellow is 2 1/4 by 3 1/4. That matches that embossed piece, and I had cut that down so it has a border around it. So I'm going to put that on the front and glue that down, and then I'm going to place my flowers on top of that. So I've just placed everything on top of that card front, and I used the leaves from the Just Leaves die set, and I found a piece of cardstock that coordinated with the frayed leaf, and I put a lot of foam tape on things. And like I said, I've just set everything on top of it here, and I'm going to use a piece of press and seal and just save my image the way I want it to be, and then pick it up and turn it over, and I can remove all of the release paper and glue the pieces down. I find that press and seal to be such a time saver when you wanted to save something the way you have it arranged. Here's the Just Leaves die set, and this is just such a great staple to have on hand. And then I also use the Simple Greetings for the hello. And then the Fairy Tale Rose has some great sentiments in there, so I used the How Are You from that with white embossing powder. I just thought the card turned out really fun, and I ended up putting some dewdrops on it just for some added sparkle to it. And then I made an envelope, and I also used the embossing folder on the flap of the envelope. I love coming up with creative ways to use my products, and hopefully I give you some ideas to stretch your products as well. As always, I appreciate the time you've spent with me and would love it if you would like and subscribe. I have a couple more videos that are popular at the end here if you haven't seen them. Thank you again, and I hope you have a great day doing something you love.